Less than 18 million people and more than 116 million livestock like chicken, pig and cattle. The Netherlands is the second largest exporter of agricultural products in the world, and half of its land is devoted to agriculture, an agri-food superpower despite its tiny size, which could turn into a problem for emissions, including nitrogen, a chemical element that in high concentrations is dangerous for nature and water quality. Almost all human activities produce it, but in the Netherlands, agriculture is the biggest culprit, responsible for 50% of all nitrogen emissions.
Basically, there in the Netherlands there are two big reasons why we have a nitrogen problem. On the first hand, we are a very densely populated area, and we have the most dense livestock concentration in Europe. And on the other hand, the Netherlands has taken a rather strict interpretation of the European Habitats Directive, which stipulates that for every new kind of activity, we have to realize nitrogen reduction elsewhere.
The previous government set a goal of halving its emissions by 2030. For this, farmers are required to reduce their nitrogen footprint or sell their properties to the Dutch state, which put in place a voluntary buyout scheme with a budget of €8 billion. But for now, it's not been very popular, explains Jan Arie Kurivar, who owns 115 cows on his 90-hectare property in South Holland. He produces 100 million litres of milk per year in an almost 100% organic way, and he believes the government should focus more on boosting innovation rather than reducing the size of farms.
But a lot of farmers are worried because it's not clear for them what they need to do on their farm to meet the demands of the government. I think there are also possibilities to reduce emissions for dairy farmers as well, if you can help them with the funding to reduce that with technological innovations. We do not have that type of measurements yet. And the other thing would be that the government helps to make your farm more extensive. So to help, for instance, with the availability of land.
But the issue has turned controversial ahead of the country's elections next week. While farmers are pushing back against the current provisions, some parties and environmental associations want even more. They're asking for mandatory buyouts instead of voluntary ones, halving emissions by 2030 and stricter targets on livestock reduction.
We demand that the government helps farmers make the transition to ecological farming with 70% fewer animals in 2030 and 80% fewer in 2050, and actually helps farmers or helps, the market set up a system in such a way that the farmer also has a good income, producing like food for humans instead of a lot of food for animals.
Le preoccupazioni di ambientalisti e agricoltori si faranno probabilmente sentire nel voto del 22 novembre e sono destinate a influire sulla composizione del nuovo Parlamento olandese. Vincenzo Genovese, Euronews, L'Aia.